Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we are going to embark on a seriously fascinating journey, decoding the hidden mechanics of human dynamics. We're unpacking some brilliant insights from author and strategist Robert Greene, taking a really close look at how power operates across basically every facet of our lives. We'll be moving from external ambitions and these grand historical strategies, all the way down into deep and honestly sometimes a little uncomfortable internal self-awareness. Our goal here is to transform these complex observations into clear, actionable takeaways that you can actually use. So let's dive right in. Robert Greene has this great quote. He says, whenever three people are together in a group, there's politics, there's ego. And man, does that instantly burst a very common, very naive bubble that a lot of us hold on to, especially early on in our careers. It's that comforting belief that the world runs purely on merit, hard work, and raw results. But the source material hits hard on this point. Wherever there are humans, there is a constant, underlying battle of comparison and ego. You just absolutely cannot afford to be naive to this reality.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the workplace political game.
To really get this, consider the personal anecdote behind Greene's own realization. Back in the 1990s, he was working as a researcher for a reality TV show, and by his own admission, he was exceptional at the actual work. Out of a whole team of 8 people, he was personally finding about 80% of the successful stories for the show. That's huge, right? But then, during a meeting, his boss called him out for having a bad attitude and just not paying attention. In his head, Greene arrogantly thought, well, my results are so good, I don't need to fake interest in this boring meeting. The result? He got fired. His massive output literally wasn't enough to save him, all because he completely ignored the political game. So how do we actually navigate this without losing our minds? Well, the key is a structured approach, which is absolutely crucial for young professionals who are, understandably impatient to make money and reach the top right out of the gate. Step 1 is simple. Wait and observe the dynamics around you. Get a read on the room. Step 2 is to focus on learning actual skills rather than just obsessively chasing a promotion. And step 3, you have to actually play the political game. As the source material points out, you definitely don't have to love the politics, but if you want security and if you want advancement, you have to participate. You've got to acknowledge your superiors and play your specific part in that social ecosystem. Moving right along to Section 2, the dynamics of seduction. Okay, I've got a question for you, and I want you to really think about it. Who would you say is the greatest female seducer of all time? Instinctively, you might jump to modern icons or maybe mythical figures like Helen of Troy, but the historical answer provided in our source material is completely unexpected and absolutely fascinating. This really brilliantly illustrates the sheer strategic genius of seduction. Let's look at 2 totally different masterclasses here. On one hand, we have Cleopatra. The source notes that historically, she actually wasn't considered ravishingly beautiful in a conventional sense. Her true genius was in identifying a man's precise psychological weakness. When Julius Caesar arrived to conquer Egypt, she didn't try to fight him with armies. Instead, she used a spectacular, highly customized theater. She put him on this gorgeous gold barge on the Nile, playing directly into his massive ego and his love for grand spectacle. She effectively turned a conqueror into her biggest supporter overnight. Now, contrast that with Marilyn Monroe. Monroe was an entirely different kind of seducer. Coming from a deeply troubled childhood, she projected this intense, unspoken starvation for love directly into the camera lens. She wasn't necessarily a master of seducing individual men like Cleopatra was. Instead, she crafted an iconic persona that completely seduced the entire public. But here's the catch. How do the best seducers avoid looking like they're just, running a cheap script? Enter a concept called the natural. We all know that if you act too cold, too calculating, or if you use really obvious tactics, people see right through it. It completely loses its charm. The ultimate smokescreen for any seductive tactic is retaining spontaneous, unpretentious, childlike qualities. When someone is playful and seems completely natural, our defenses just naturally drop. We don't feel like we're being manipulated at all. We just feel totally charmed. This brings us perfectly to Section 3, power in intimate relationships. Now, there is a massive, and I mean absolutely crucial distinction between being equal and being the same. In a healthy relationship, of course you want equality. You want shared respect, balanced boundaries, and mutual support. But you absolutely do not want to be exactly the same. The biological and emotional differences between 2 people are literally what create the tension, the spark, and the sexual energy in the first place. Demanding rigid, identical control or trying to erase those core differences, that completely flattens the dynamic. It kills the romance. Check out this brilliant paradox from the source material. Oftentimes, the person who plays being subservient or inferior is actually the one in control of the whole dynamic. Think about that for a second. We almost always assume the person shouting or demanding the final say is the one holding all the power. But actually, demanding total control usually stems from deep insecurity and weakness. A relationship is an interactive loop. The person who quietly acts subservient might actually be the one orchestrating the entire emotional dynamic from behind the scenes, triggering the other person's anger or resentment just to maintain a hidden upper hand. Wild, right? All right, time to hold up a mirror for Section 4, confronting our own narcissism. So how do you actually spot a toxic narcissist out in the wild? The source details some incredibly chilling nonverbal cues that you can look out for. First off, look for a deadness in the eyes. They might appear to be listening to you, nodding along, but the lights aren't really on. They're essentially just gathering data. Second, they are listening solely to calculate leverage. They're just figuring out how they can use whatever you're saying to their own advantage later. And third, there's this isolated, slightly demonic smile. It's not a genuine smile of social connection or shared joy. It's a smile of internal judgment or self-satisfaction. Honestly, these are the subtle, creepy vibes your gut usually picks up on way before your brain even processes it.
But wait, there's a really surprising counterpoint here. Not all narcissism is purely toxic. It actually exists on a spectrum. Something called healthy narcissism is actually crucial if you want to survive in an incredibly harsh and critical world. If you want to build a massive business, direct a groundbreaking film, or create great art, you have to possess a profound level of self-belief and, yes, self-absorption. You need it just to withstand all the people constantly trying to tear you down. Healthy narcissists possess this deep self-love, sure, but they manage to channel it productively into their creations, rather than just using it to destroy the people around them.
Now, here is the real kicker. Human beings are absolute masters of self-deception. The number one sign that someone is a narcissist is if they say, "Oh no, I'm definitely not a narcissist." By claiming you are somehow magically exempt from basic human flaws, you are actually demonstrating the ultimate narcissistic trait, believing you are completely superior and entirely different from everybody else. The hard truth the source material wants us to grasp is that we are all self-absorbed to some degree. Admitting that to yourself is literally the only way to actually control it. Which leads us directly into our final and most profound part today, Section 5, Vulnerability and True Power. In 2018, Robert Greene experienced a visceral, completely life-altering event. Here is a man who spent his entire life analyzing power, a guy who prided himself on his intense physical activity, swimming and cycling constantly. And then he was stung by a random wasp. This absolute freak occurrence led to a stroke that instantly erased his physical autonomy. Just let that sink in. In a literal instant, his independence, his bodily control, and his physical power were completely stripped away. As you can imagine, this completely transformed his worldview. As he put it, "I lost control of my body. It made me feel dependent on other people." For decades, he had intellectually understood what it meant for people to lack power in society. He wrote books about it. But this near-death experience transformed that theoretical knowledge into a profound, painful, lived empathy. He was forced to physically experience the humiliation and the fear of being entirely dependent on the goodwill of others, just to survive his day-to-day life. And this brilliantly illustrates the intense, hard-won clarity he now channels toward able-bodied people. He says, "Don't take for granted the things that you can do. Feel, God damn it, I'm alive." When he's out riding a specialized tricycle now, struggling to get up a hill while everyone else is just easily passing him by, he sees people blindly taking the simple, absolute miracle of moving their own bodies entirely for granted. His message is essentially an urgent plea for all of us to wake up to the immense physical power we currently hold right this second. So that brings us to a final question, one I really want to leave echoing in your mind today. While you're busy playing the workplace political game, navigating your relationships, and managing your own ego, what everyday physical miracles are you completely taking for granted? Because at the end of the day, understanding human dynamics isn't just about outsmarting the person next to you. It's about gaining a deep, vulnerable appreciation for the fleeting, beautiful reality of being alive in the first place. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it leaves you with a fresh, powerful perspective on what the true arenas of power actually are.